Okay, my outstanding friends, another wild ride at Mud Fossil University. Well, what are we riding today? We are riding the Crystal Caves. Now, this is inside the world's largest crystal cave, BBC real. Again, fair use. I'm not trying to steal this. I just want to show that this is biology. They say, look at all these crystals, gigantic crystals. Well, I don't think anybody has any idea where they come from. This is a gigantic geode. Now, there's a cave in Mexico that has crystals that are a little different, and they talk about that here. I'm going to play this a little bit to show the difference between this cave and the ones in Mexico, and then I'm going to show you, I have some things here that relate quite a bit to what they're talking about. Well, actually, every bit. Okay, my friends, we are going to be looking at that spot right there, which is a tendon emplacement. It's eroded away, and it's showing where these tendons were locked in. You see all these balls? That's where tendons came down and locked in. This is the vein and artery. That's the vein, and that's the artery. See? I've done a catalase test on this and all that. This is some type of a tendon. Now watch this right here. You see this? This is very cool. I'm going to put a tiny little taste of water on there. And within, I would say, less than 30 seconds, that's going to turn almost brilliant red. All right, you ready? Here it comes. You see that? I don't know if you can or not, but I sure can. You see that? Now, this right here was a tendon. Remember I showed you those gnarly looking things? This right here came out and a ball went down inside there. These are from tendon balls. That's what I call them. They're tendon anthesis. See that right there? That's a tendon anthesis. Might be a little dirty still. I don't know. They've been sitting around here for many years. You see that? That's the gnarly looking stuff that we're looking at in some of these pictures. Now again, there's that type, and then there's this type here, which is it's a crystal, but it's selenite, and this happens to be right at the abrupt transition. Isn't that amazing? Look at that. You see that? That's an abrupt transition. And this is glue that glues one to the next. That's the glue. It's deep inside there. And I bet you I could put catalase on there, hydrogen peroxide on there and get a catalase reaction, because that is also blood. Now you can see that's flat. You see how flat that is and how all those layers? That's tendon. This is too, I believe, or it could be muscle. You see how this is curved? Tendon normally doesn't curve like that. Usually muscle does. But in the right conditions, virtually anything can turn into anything. I mean, if it's in the right conditions, meat can turn into stay just like it was when it was meat. The fascia stays just like it was when it was fascia. Sometimes they can completely transition. This is a geode. She's going to be talking about geodes. And this is a geode right here. And inside, if I smash this open, it would have some crystals in there. That's what geodes have, crystals inside of them. That one's not broken open. But I can actually show you where the... I got to find it. It's around here somewhere. There it is right there. You see that? That's the actual stalk that led into this tendon. This tendon anthesis ball, which is a geode. Geodes are tendon anthesis balls. They're just huge. They're not little bitty things. In our bodies, you need a microscope to see them. And then this one here is basically the same thing as this, but it's inside of an eroded piece. And there's another one that's just like came right out of that hole. There's another one right there. They're all over the place. And that's what holds you together. So we're going to take a quick look at these in the microscope, a couple of those shots. Alright, so we're looking at the crystals in that tendon anthesis, which is part of that, I don't know, muscle or whatever it is. It's locked in. And that is the same stuff. And here it is in the microscope. Now, the reason we have all that red stuff in with there's still some blood in this one. That one down here would have also had blood in it. But it erodes out. And this would erode out too if it was in the right conditions for long enough. This got out of the conditions, well, it still had some of the original biology red blood left in it. That one did not. That one just was continued to get soaked until it just turned into solid crystal. Alright, this is the crystal cave, I believe, that she's talking about in Mexico. These are like 15 meters long. That's like 45, 50 feet, some of these crystals. You see up here this red? That is what we're going to be looking at in, well, we did see it in here, only it's not quite the same size. But anyway, that's what we got. This is just what life is. Alright, this is a highly eroded lung. And this is one of the alveoli cavities, and it's starting to fill in with crystals, and that will form a crystal network inside of there. They call them vugs. Alright, that's clear crystal quartz. I don't think anybody would disagree. Here's my, I'm trying to scrape it. You can't really scrape that. That's hard stuff. Alright, that's the crystal quartz. Well, it's supposed to be completely crystal and not other things. Well, that's not the way this works. This thing here is saturated with blood in certain areas because it was at one time a heart. Now let me find, I won't take it out of the scope so you can see I'm not changing things. This is the other side of this heart. Now let me focus in. Give me a minute. You see that? That's still crystal quartz, but it's got blood in it. This was from a heart. Now I have another one here that has virtually no blood at all, but it has all of the filaments, the heartstrings and everything inside. This one is 50-50. You can see all the heartstrings and everything inside of it, but it's also still got a lot of blood in it. If it was in the right conditions, well, let's see what we got here. If it was in the right conditions, there'd be no blood at all here. You'd see no redness at all. It'd just be totally crystal. But you'd still see the fibers that were the heartstrings and the different tissue layering. You'd still see some of that. Now, let me look at this other heart I have here. Hold on. Where'd it go? There it is. Nope. There we go. Now this one here is really clear glass. But you can still see inside of it. You see all the stuff inside? That's all the heartstrings and things inside. I could find blood on here if I look hard enough. Like over here, you see there? There's some blood right there. But it's primarily quartz. So when they say crystal quartz is always completely crystal, that's not true. If it's in a crystal tube, normally yes, there won't be very many inclusions. This would be what's called inclusions. Alright, now. This, my friends, is a small lung I have here that has completely eroded away, but it would look like dirt. And then these would look like these little spikes that they saw going every which way in that crystal cave down in Mexico. Now, I have this one here is just one that's filled in a little bit. I have another one here. Let me see if I can show you that one. It's on the same lung. Alright, this is how the crystal works its way into these vugs. Now, the one down in Mexico, I think, is a tendon anthesis. This is actually a lung. All these cavities are lung cavities. But you can see the crystal will fill in where the holes were. Because there'll be a hole in every one of these. They all have to have a hole that brings the air back into the main cavity. And that was where there was a hole. That's why they call veins of quartz. Well, they fill in holes, and like this is a vug, and it would eventually fill in completely. It would build on its own self. Okay, I told you that lungs can fill up with quartz in those holes. Now, I showed you a little lung here. Here it is. That is a little lung, had all these holes in it. Well, they just emptied out. There's still a lot of blood left in this. But this was nothing more than a lung just like that. Now, of course, it's a lot smaller. These are human size. And as a matter of fact, this one right here was DNA tested, CAT scanned, and everything. 100% for certain it's human. And I drilled deep inside and took the blood out of it, so don't give me that kind of nonsense about that I must have contaminated it. Now, this is a crystal quartz heart. And that might have even been where that lung came from, because that lung is also filled with quartz, just like the heart was. And the heart still, as I showed you or will show you, still has a little blood in it, similar to this. These are the alveoli. You see all these little holes? Same as these holes right here. This is the anatomical look. Now, it was laying like this, it appears to me. This actually had blood running out of it, little balls of blood coming out. This appears to have emptied down, so I am assuming it was laying like this. This was what came out of those little red spots. Blood. I mean, literally blood. It was fluidy. You could just rub it and it turned into fluid blood, just right there, right out of these spots. So, this is what quartz can happen. It fills in holes. They don't have to be perfectly straight cylinders of crystals of quartz. They fill in the holes. Sometimes they make crystals, sometimes they don't. Okay, what you see here is a geode. That right there is a geode, and I can tell that because of that anthesis spot. This was originally something like this. If you broke this in half, you would find something like that inside. I'm not going to do that. Now, these are different. This is actually a heart, and that has turned into crystal quartz. However, you can still see blood in it here and there, and it's not like the clear quartz you can see through, because there's so much bodily tissue inside of that. The quartz does not always turn clear. They say, oh, it's just got to be clear if it's quartz. No, that's not true. Quartz has all kinds of still inclusions in it, and it's still crystal quartz. That is crystal quartz. That's not just some kind of little... Selenite is different. Selenite, if I did that to selenite, it would flake all over. It would fall apart. Selenite is calcium sulfates. This is silicon dioxide. Two different materials altogether. And these are hard, very hard. And the selenite, you could scratch it with your fingernail. But that's what we're looking at here. And these are still all biology. There's nothing here that isn't biology. Selenite's biology too. These are all biology. And sometimes a heart can turn like that. It can just stay red blood, really red bloody blood. Alright, I think I can wrap it up here. This one here is what we're seeing inside those crystal caves, I believe. And you can see that red around, it was like there, and all the crystals going this way and that way. Those are tendon anthesis. Now, that's that. Now, this is what they look like. The balls themselves are like these geodes. They have a little strap coming to them. You see them? They're all over the place. They have a little strap comes in and holds them in position, which is right there. And that was, it locks it in so that the fiber can pull against your muscles. All biology. Now, check this out. Remember, that's that crystal cave. These people walking around it. See the ceiling there? That's that, like that coming down with all those spikes going down. And then there would normally be a lot of biology in here, but it must have washed out whenever the event occurred that destroyed it. All right, now look at this one. This one here, you can see it has a ridge underneath of it, and all of those crystals are growing, just like the one I showed you in my shop, only mine's a little tiny bit smaller. Now, this one, check this out. Ooh, look at that. You talk about candy. Look at that puppy. All of these colors are transition metals. This had to be in a very dense blood area. And some of the crystals just made them way into, you know, blah, blah, blah. Isn't that something? I'll tell you, these things are amazing when you start really looking at what's around the world. Now, what else we got? This shows you how you can grow your own crystals and why they turn into all these different colors and so forth. What else we got? Whoops. Oh, look at this. Check that out. Isn't that something? It's a knife blade or a spearhead or something. Crystal quartz. Boy, I'll tell you, that will cut you. What do we got next here? I guess that was it. Oh yeah, this one just talks about the different angles of different types of molecules. And they all have a certain, well, hold on a second. Wait, you see this? All right, you see how they're showing the angles? This is a paper I did long ago showing how what's called dipole moments create certain you know, geometry inside depending upon how polar they are. And the polar positive and negative sets up these angles. And it's all to do with the type of chemistry, the molecule that's, like the selenite is calcium sulfate. And it's clear. Hold on a second. You see, this is the calcite, calcium sulfate, but it's the selenium. This is selenium. And then you have your quartz, which is your clear crystal quartz, which is silicon dioxide. Two different molecules, but a lot of different similarity to like the planes that they create. You see that? Isn't that cool? That's the abrupt transition between two pieces of tendon. They actually glue together. Isn't that amazing? And this is all the little layering in it. I don't know if you'll be able to see that well, but there's a bazillion layers in there. Just you see only a few, but there's a ton of them. Let me see. Hard to see, but that's the glue. Isn't that something? And this one I think is a muscle because of the, you see the curve? Usually tendons don't curve like that. Plus I can see some breaks in here. These crossing lines there, those are what they call sarcomeres. And that's how muscles pinch together. You see? I don't know if you'll be able to see those. I can see them. They're little lines inside. And that's how muscles pinch together. Alright, well, let's just finish it off. I told you these were sarcomeres in this little thing here. And I believe that's what these little lines are. If you can see those, I do not know. I can. And these are sarcomeres. And this is what pulls together muscle. And this is a muscle that's in my shop right here. This is the blood that services the tissue below. These are muscle. You can't see the sarcomeres. They're like, you need a microscope, an electron microscope to see them. But this is what muscle looks like in the mud fossil world. And this, my friends, is what muscle and tendons and and all the different layering of your body looks like in a gigantic creature that died. Whoops, this is the muscle area. This is the actual skin on the top. These are the membranes that separate the top from the basement. And then you get into your muscle and then your connective tissues and so forth. It's not 150 millions of years in one picture. That's like 10 minutes the guy died. Alright, I showed you my muscle. It's in my shop. And it has an artery, and all that red stuff was coming out of it. That's an artery and a vein. That's what's called the Mars crab. Well, it's not a crab. It has nothing to do with being a crab. This is a blood vessel. These are the sarcomeres. I just showed you. They pull in like this. There's a million different layers in there, and then in between each layer is a little red gooey spot, and they've all eroded out. That's why this is the red planet. It's red because of blood. This thing is covered with life, 100% covered, 100% covered. All right, let me just buttress up my claims. This is interstitium. This is in your body. These little tiny balls are in your body, in your skin area, so that you can move and come back and forth. These are all the balls. They call them Moki marbles. These little tiny ones, and then you got some gigantic ones over here in United Kingdom, Huntington's Beach. These balls have eroded out of that wall. This is the mucosa, or the skin. This is the flesh, and the balls have eroded out just like these, and they come out just like that right there. There's the skin. There's where all the balls are embedded, that red fleshy stuff, and it eroded out all over the place. These are those same balls, and here's what they look like in a microscope. That's the same balls. We just have no idea what's going on around the world. Look at this. This is that interstitium. Remember what I just showed you a second ago? This interstitium right here. You see this? All that gooey stuff? What that does is it pulls this way and pulls that way and pulls this way, and then it comes back to wherever the balls are anchored. Let me show you what's happening on Mars. This is interstitium. This is where the skin is gathered and gathered. This is where it's pulled apart, just the way it's supposed to work. And it's come back together to look something like up here, where it's not disturbed, it's not pulled, it's not gathered. This is gathered, pulled, pulled. And it's pulled so hard that the balls are all that's left there. The straps are much weaker than the balls. The straps erode, and the rest of the stuff erodes away. And you end up with the balls and the straps in some places, balls only in other places. Gathered and gathered, normally looking. That's up on Mars. It calls the Mars Morse code. They're up there looking for life. It's just laying everywhere in front of them. They can't possibly miss it, but they missed it. You want to see the Mars blueberries? I showed you the other ones. Here's the Mars blueberries. I said, ooh, I wonder how that happened. It happened the same way the Moki marbles happened in Utah. They're tendon balls. They're all over, everywhere. It's 100% saturated with life up on Mars. It's amazing they miss all this stuff.